Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the show yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show, guys. Today, I am going to be giving you my PPR rankings 12 through 24. Yesterday, I gave you my top 12. So today, I'm going to be going over the second round of the draft, essentially, and I'm going to start with the first player on my list, and that is Dalvin Cook, my number 13. Now, this is a guy who has the second or third highest ceiling in fantasy, right after Christian McCaffrey. You could pretty much argue that either Dalvin Cook or Jonathan Taylor have the highest ceiling in fantasy football. So this is awesome, all right? The problem with Dalvin Cook is I don't trust him to stay on the field. This is why I refuse to draft him in the first round. But the flip side of this is his ceiling is incredible. I mean, he is a candidate every week to potentially have 30-plus touches in any given game. He's going to receive 25-plus touches without question every single week. He's going to get true running back one, workhorse volume. He's going to see a ton of work in the passing game. This is a good pass catching back. He's extremely good at running in between the tackles. He has good big play ability. He has everything you want from a talent standpoint and a volume standpoint in a fantasy running back. And he obviously has the upside to finish as the running back one in fantasy if he stays healthy and on the field. But let's be honest, this guy never finishes a fantasy season. So that's why I refuse to draft him in the first round. With that being said, if I get a stud running back in the first round that I know is going to stay healthy and on the field, and somehow, and it's not likely, somehow Dalvin Cook slips to the second round, I will definitely take him as my second running back and take a gamble on the ceiling because I have a safe running back with my first round pick. But odds are he's not going to slip to the second round, so I would fade him. But here at the beginning of the second round, at this part of the draft, if he is still available now, go ahead and take him at the beginning of the second round. Next player on my list is going to be DeAndre Swift. Now, this guy has tremendous talent. He's very Aaron Jones-like, okay? He is going to receive a ton of targets, right up there with Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones. He's going to see the most targets in the NFL at the running back position. He is extremely talented. He has big playability. He's good at running in between the tackles. He's a player that is going to average probably somewhere between 4.7 and 5.3 yards per carry. He is a very efficient running back. He's probably going to have some of the most efficiency in the league from the running back position from a rushing standpoint. But the big problem here with DeAndre Swift and why I am not taking him in the first round is because he plays for the Lions. He's not going to score a whole lot of touchdowns in this offense. I would be surprised, very, very surprised, if he eclipsed 12 touchdowns in this offense. And when you're drafting a running back in the first round, you want them to be a lock for double-digit touchdowns and have the ceiling of having 20 touchdowns. He has nowhere near this. So I don't trust him to get in the end zone often enough, but the PPR numbers are still going to be good because he's going to catch a ton of passes and be very efficient when he runs the ball. So he is a second-round player for me. Next player on my list is going to be Derrick Henry. Now, this is a guy who is very talented. I mean, we saw him last year just absolutely light the league on fire before. He went down with his injury, but there's some problems here. He's very used up. He's super old, and I just don't trust him not to break. I mean, they're going to give him insane rushing volume. He's going to have more rushing volume than any running back in the entire NFL. I mean, he doesn't catch a lot of passes, but he's literally a guy who could run the ball on average 27 times a game, which is obviously completely ridiculous. But I don't see him finishing another season. He's old. He's used up. He's probably going to get hurt. And despite the awesome big playability, I actually don't like the overall efficiency of this Titans offense this year. With the loss of A.J. Brown, I just don't trust the team to be able to move the ball at will. They're going to be very one-dimensional. Teams are going to be stacking the box to stop the run because they know that Derrick Henry is the only real weapon on this team. So I just don't trust the offense, and I think that Derrick Henry is going to have a down year. That being said, obviously he has some pretty extreme upside. So, if you want to draft Derrick Henry, I don't blame you, but I'm going to be fading him in most drafts. Next player on my list is going to be Leonard Fournette. Now, Leonard Fournette is part of a very high-scoring Tampa Bay offense. He's going to see passing work. He's going to see very good rushing volume. He's obviously going to have a ton of scoring opportunities playing in a Tom Brady-led offense. So we're going to have to see how the, overall efficiency is this year for Leonard Fournette because, he can be a little bit inconsistent as far as his overall rushing efficiency, but he's playing in such a good offense that I think by default he's going to be an efficient runner. So whether or not you think this is one of the more talented backs in the league or not, he's going to rush efficiently by default being in the Tampa Bay offense, and he's going to get in the end zone a lot. So I have him as a mid-round player in the second round. Next player on my list is going to be Najee Harris. This is obviously way lower than a lot of people are going to have Najee Harris. And the reason for this is because he is completely volume dependent. He does not have top end speed. He really doesn't have awesome big playability. You look at him last year, he really didn't have, very many, if any, huge chunk plays. And he just scored double-digit touchdowns. I mean, he had 10 touchdowns. I could easily see that number being less this year playing in an offense that I don't believe in whatsoever. So the touchdown upside is severely capped. The big playability is severely capped. I am not going to draft a player in the first round that has zero big playability and no touchdown upside. It makes absolutely no sense. Now, the flip side of this is Najee Harris is going to see a ton of passing work. He's going to have weeks where he sees double-digit targets. He is going to carry the ball 20-plus times almost every single week. He is a lock every week for 25-plus touches, and due to the ridiculous amount of volume he's going to get, by default, he's going to put up some pretty good fantasy numbers, so he is a good second-round pick. Next player on my list is going to be Micheal Pittman Jr. This guy is way higher in my rankings than he is in anyone else's. But look, the Colts got Matt Ryan. Micheal Pittman Jr. now has by far the best quarterback he's ever had in his career to sling him the rock. He's going into his third season. We saw true elite wide receiver one talent in Micheal Pittman Jr. last year. This guy is a true wide receiver one from a talent standpoint, from a size standpoint, from a volume standpoint. Everything screams massive breakout season for Micheal Pittman Jr. Make no mistake, this guy could finish as the number one wide receiver in fantasy. I know that's a big-time stretch, and I'm not saying that I think that that's likely, but it is in the range of outcomes that Micheal Pittman Jr. is the number one wide receiver in fantasy. Long shot, but possible. Okay? And top 5 is definitely possible. He could certainly be a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football this year. I can't wait to see what Micheal Pittman Jr. can do. And while everybody else is drafting, reaching too early for Josh Allen or drafting a guy like Tyreek Hill that's in a very suspect offense, just take Micheal Pittman Jr. He's a lock for massive production. Next player on my list is going to be James Conner, guys. James Conner is one of the best running backs in fantasy when Chase Edmonds doesn't play. Chase Edmonds is no longer on the team. James Conner is going to absolutely eat this year. Will the touchdowns regress? Yes, but the fact of the matter is he's going to get a ton of rushing volume and a ton of passing volume, and an offense is going to be very good, especially when DeAndre Hopkins comes back. So I love the upside for James Conner. Next player on my list is going to be Breece Hall. This is a true 3-down back. Don't worry about Michael Carter Jr. He's not going to get any work whatsoever. Breece Hall is the freaking man. He is playing in a Michael Floyd offense that really looked good in the second half of the season last year when Michael Floyd started calling plays. And so I think that this offense has some sneaky upside. Will they be a bottom 10 NFL offense? Probably so. But if Najee Harris could be successful in the Steelers offense last year, Breece Hall can certainly be successful in this Jets offense. He has Najee Harris volume coming his way, and he has way better big play ability than Najee Harris. So I see Breece Hall being a big-time breakout player this year in fantasy. Next player on my list is going to be Keenan Allen, Mr. Reliable Keenan Allen. This is a guy who's going to receive 10-plus targets almost every single week. And due to his extreme volume and the fact that he's definitely going to see more touchdowns this year, he's due for some serious positive touchdown regression. I love Keenan Allen. He's going to absolutely go off in this Chargers offense. He's going to score a ton of touchdowns and dominate the overall reception count. Is going to be a monster for PPR. Next player on my list is going to be Travis Kelce. Guys, Travis Kelce is old. That's why I don't have him ranked highly. But, I have him ranked highly. I have him as a second-round pick. But I'm not going to take him in the first round. I really don't like drafting tight ends early. But the fact of the matter is he's going to have a ridiculous target share, something like a 25% target share from the tight end position, which is absolutely ridiculous. He's in a Pat Mahomes-led offense, so he still has tremendously high upside. So I like him on the season. Mid to late second round is about right for Travis Kelce. Next player on my list is going to be Nick Chubb. Now, this is a guy who is probably the most talented running back in the NFL from a just sheer talent standpoint, running behind an incredible offensive line. He'd probably be the number one running back off the board if he wasn't splitting a backfield with Kareem Hunt. But you've got to be very careful drafting Nick Chubb because Kareem Hunt is going to take all of his scoring opportunities and a lot of his pass catching work. But Nick Chubb is an extremely efficient runner. He's a lock for 4.7 plus yards a carry this year. There's no way in heck he will rush for less than that. So I love his upside due to his sheer yardage totals that he's going to have. Final player I have here on my list is Travis Ettienne. Travis Ettienne is a guy who is playing in an improved Jacksonville offense. I mean, look, a second-year Trevor Lawrence, coaching changes that we needed took place. They got rid of Urban Meyer. I think that this offense is not going to be the best, but it's definitely going to be improved from what it was last year. And James Robinson was good for fantasy last year in a bad Jacksonville offense. So in an improved Jacksonville offense with a more talented, more explosive Travis Ettienne with awesome game-breaking abilities and upside due to his awesome athletic ability, I love the overall ceiling for Travis Ettienne, and I think he's going to be a breakout player this year. I have him as my number 24. All right, guys, appreciate you tuning into the video. I will catch you later.